Welcome to the After the Storm Canes game review for games 2 and 3 of the New York Rangers play-in qualifying round series. If you're watching this, you probably already know the Canes won both games, swept the Rangers, and have officially moved on to the Stanley Cup playoffs. 3 games over 4 days, and not pretty much any of the games did the Canes look out of it. In fact, they looked pretty damn good. Besides that stretch of games at the beginning, like those 5 games where they went undefeated to begin the season, this is maybe their best stretch yet. There really wasn't a weakness in their game, and that was what was so refreshing to see with this team. To start, I'm going to kind of gloss over Game 2 entirely. If you watched it, you know Andrei Svechnikov lit up the New York Rangers. He took 3 shots, 3 goals, won the game almost single-handedly. A weird decision if you're just looking at it kind of on paper and thinking about where we are at this time of year. Brind'Amour starts James Reimer in net for Game 3. Of course, there's no injury with Peter Mrazek. There's nothing. Rod just expressed an interest in getting Reimer into the net. And, if you're in a series like a best-of-5 and you're up 2-0 with 1 game to win and playing the way the Canes were, I can't really argue with it. Not that Rod Brind'Amour's really ever given me much to think twice about. At this point, I pretty much trust him with whatever decision he's going to make. So just by looking at the first couple minutes of this video, it's more going to be a wrap-up kind of episode. I'm not going to dive into the games too much. I'm just going to talk about some of the players and what to look forward to going forward as we look to play one of the 4 round-robin teams. So first, let's start with the top line of Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, and Andrei Svechnikov. The biggest name you're probably looking at, the one who got the most publicity and the most attention, was Andrei Svechnikov, and for good reason. He had a hat-trick in Game 2. I think he ends up with 5 points or 7 points out of the first 3 games of that series. He was incredible from start to finish. He didn't actually produce much on the scoreboard for game number 3, but where he made the biggest difference was his hitting, his physical play, and his forechecking that has just come to define this Canes team in that first round play-in. In game 3, of course, he takes that huge hit from Brendan Smith, and what I love about this team, and maybe if you're a fan of other teams and you see this kind of thing happen to your player. For me, I'm always a guy who says, why retaliate? Why start a fight? Why take an extra penalty when something like this happens? If you don't know the play I'm referring to, Brendan Smith's stick breaks on like a one-timer in the defensive zone as the Rangers are trying to get a shot on James Reimer. And Svechnikov trying to hurry out a breakout, which when you got a defenseman who doesn't have a stick, you don't really need to do. He skates right up the middle of the ice, head down all the way. Brendan Smith, no stick, has no other option other than to go for the body check. And Brendan Smith cleaned Andrei Svechnikov's clock. It was ridiculous. It was a huge hit. Svechnikov went down. He only saw it the last second. Look, I was hoping he wasn't hurt on the play. Of course he wasn't. He popped right back up. But what I appreciated the most was that no Canes came in and tried to fight Brendan Smith or anything, because at this point of the game, this is what the Rangers were exactly looking for. And trying to recall the score of the game at that point, it might have been tied. It might have just been 2-1 for the Canes at this stage. Yeah, the Rangers were looking for momentum, and if the Canes, kind of respond to that hit, that's where the momentum starts for the Rangers. Svechnikov had just a terrific series, and looking forward, he's probably going to be one of the biggest players for the Canes. That top line, hopefully we don't run into a team that's got a crazy good defense and a very good shutdown defensive line. That is always what you have to look out for. Because also one worrisome note for the Canes was, besides that top line, there was not a whole lot of production from lines 2, 3, 4. Sebastian Aho has been so good all season long, really. He really came out to play in game number 3 especially. He had been good all series, but not on especially that line with how good Svechnikov has been. He wasn't, of course, the main contributor. It seems like I'm downplaying Sebastian Aho, I should say, but I'm not. He's been incredible all year. It's just a thing of I fully expect this from Sebastian Aho every single game now. And of course, in game 3, the dagger. He gets the empty net goal in addition to one of the most pretty goals you're ever going to see in this entire playoff run. A one-man forecheck in the Rangers zone. He strips Jacob Trouba along the half boards, comes in from the left side against Tony DeAngelo, and this was so sweet. Puts the puck through DeAngelo's legs, goes around him, backhand over Shesterkin's glove, top corner, a beautiful goal. And it couldn't happen to a worse player, a worse person, Tony DeAngelo. That just felt so nice to see Tony DeAngelo get walked like that. Of course, Tony DeAngelo didn't have a good series at all. I'm not even sure. Looking through that, this would be more something for Rangers fans to address, of course, but I'm not sure how good he's looked all year as well. There had been talk that he's had a really good year by some of the broadcasters, but again, this is NBC, and they see the Rangers a handful of times of the season, so it would definitely be something for the Rangers fans to address. In this whole series, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, there was a couple defensemen I really thought were good, who you wouldn't expect from the Rangers to actually be good. The only aspect I think I didn't really like from the Canes' top line in this whole series was Teuvo Teravainen. And I say this while I'm wearing his jersey. He was just kind of invisible for games 1 and 2 especially, I thought. He wasn't really moving the puck as we know Teuvo can. But he did have a goal, the beautiful goal in Game 3. Aho with a great stick lift to leave the puck for Turbo. And he comes through and backhands it to tie the game up at 1. He didn't have a bad series by any stretch, but with Teuvo, he's usually a player you notice a whole lot more. And in Games 1 and 2, you really just didn't. Obviously, no complaints there. We had Aho and Svechnikov who completely took over games. So it doesn't really matter at this stage, and of course we won the series 3-0. But going forward, for me personally, I would love to see Teuvo be able to, use his playmaking ability. He's one of the best passers this league has. So you just hope that he comes back and comes back strong. Another thing I really like, the fourth line of Carolina, I believe, which is that McGinn, Geeky, and Martinook line really looked good all series with their forecheck. I thought the third line, of course, as well as with Stahl, Williams, and Fogle looked really good at times too. So really good when you're looking at your checking lines who are putting on pressure, causing turnovers, generating momentum. That's exactly what you want from a line like that. Fogle, of course, had the series-clinching goal, a tip on a Brady Shea point shot. Now looking at some of the defense, the one D-man that I was just completely soured on heading into this, and now that I look back on it, I'm going to completely pull that back. That was Joel Edmondson. I thought there's no reason to have this guy in the lineup. I hope Rod doesn't put him in just simply because he won a cup last season with St. Louis. But you could look at him and probably argue he was the Canes' best defenseman through the entire 3-game stretch. Blocking tons of shots, his defense was really good. Jumped up in a few plays, threw some good hits. I'm going to mention it twice. His blocking shots was a complete difference maker. Jacob Slavin was Jacob Slavin. He had a couple, especially I think in the Game 3 when Kreider opened up the scoring very quickly into the second period. I would have liked to see a little bit more from him on that play, even though it was Vodnin who got walked by Kreider. But other than that, not a big issue. He was very steady the whole way through. Jake Gardner, I thought, looked the best he's ever looked in a playoff series, and if you're a Leafs fan watching this, if you're somebody from an Ontario market like myself who sees a lot of Leafs games every year, you would know that Jake is, this time of year, sometimes he's really bad, sometimes he's very average when a team wants him to be a whole lot better, and for that, sometimes he gets scapegoated. And I think that's totally unfair of Jake Gardner. It's been so fun seeing him in Carolina because he seems relaxed. He seems like the injuries that he sustained to his back over the course of the last couple of years, they seem to have healed. He looks a lot better on his skates, which wasn't something I was thinking of in February. I thought he looked really banged up, but in this series, I thought he made a lot of great decisions with the puck, and his skating is just that much better. Hayden Fleury looked terrific as well. I think that was one of the big question marks coming into this series. Unfortunately, I think he's the guy who comes out of the lineup for Dougie Hamilton, which isn't, I wouldn't take him out. That's my call. But you're looking at a left-handed shot does have to come out of the lineup for Dougie. when he does come back, and it's probably Fleury mostly because he did play whole lot of minutes, but I don't think there's any other lefties on the team that are going to end up scratched. You look at the left-handers you have on the squad. You have Slavin, of course, he's not going to be scratched. Gardner, I don't think they'll scratch, mostly because they just signed into a contract. Edmondson played so well that I don't think he's the scratch, and then that kind of just leaves Hayden Fleury, which is very unfortunate, and I think a terrific idea is to look at a 7D11 forward rotation. There wasn't any particular player this whole series that I didn't like their play from, so it's tough to find that guy who's going to be the one to come out. One player that he was fine. He did a lot of things well. It just didn't generate to a whole lot on the board was Morgan Geekie. And I think if you're looking at a guy who's probably going to be in the lineup next year anyways, it's probably Morgan Geekie. So that might be a safer route to go if you're looking at that. Going to a 7D format, it's not always popular. It's not always good. But when you have the kind of defensive depth that the Carolina Hurricanes currently possess, it might be the best option. Of course, I'm going to leave this all to Brind'Amour. He knows what he's doing. I'm just going to be along for the ride at this point. And kind of closing out the defense, Sami Vatanen at times looked really good, at times looked really bad. I love Sami Vatanen as an offensive D-man. He's really good at handling the puck. He's a great power play quarterback. I think having him with Slavin on the top unit is probably not the way to go moving forward, especially if Dougie Hamilton comes back. And, that's just mostly because, like, Hamilton will take over that top pairing with Slavin, and moving Vatanen down the lineup is a terrific option. So I think going forward with the defense is probably the best option is to insert Hamilton in for one of those D and drop Vatanen's role down, maybe to the third pairing with Edmondson. It's probably his best fit. Sammy's more of an offensive guy, where you have Edmondson, who's more of a defensive guy. Probably a better fit for him than where Slavin is, because Slavin does like to jump up into the plate just as much as Sammy does. But I will say this, for a player we didn't get to see after acquiring him from the Devils at the trade deadline, it's really refreshing to see how good Sammy was this entire series. And then going to the goaltenders to close it out, talking about this team, Peter Mrazek, of course, was, I think we all kind of thought going into Game 1, Peter Mrazek was not the starter. Brind'Amour, of course, going with the guy who brought him to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. It's a good decision, no matter what way you look at it. And Mrazek absolutely delivered. And heading to Reimer in Game 3 was like another weird decision where you're going, why change what's working? For Brind'Amour, of course, he just shows you that he knows hockey better than anybody on here. Reimer played unbelievable in Game number 3. His last start in the playoffs was the Game 7, the infamous Game 7, Boston Bruins, Toronto Maple Leafs. The epic 4-1 collapse to losing in overtime to Patrice Bergeron and the Boston Bruins. He hadn't played a playoff game. I believe he came in relief for, I want to say it was Martin Jones or it was Antti Niemi. One of the two in 2016. That, of course, was on the San Jose Sharks. He never played one for the Florida Panthers. I'm not sure Florida even made the playoffs during this stretch. But for him to come in and play as well as he did, and of course there was that sequence where there was like 4 stops. Vatanen dives through the net to stop a shot from the Rangers. And then the puck comes around and Reimer makes that crazy paddle save. All of it was just awesome to see for a guy who deserves it. Nobody deserves it more than James Reimer. He's a fantastic guy who's been loved everywhere he's gone. As I mentioned off the top of this video, top to bottom, I think the Canes played probably their best 3-game stretch of hockey against a team nobody expected them to play this well against. Of course, the Rangers won the season series 4-0-0. Lundqvist had their number. Like the numbers that Lundqvist had heading into this series were unbelievable. It was just, this was the perfect matchup for an upset, and the Canes adjusted, studied their film, just were motivated so well in this series. As a fan watching this, I mean, I'm not sure how many people are aware, I used to be an Ottawa Senators fan, so this whole thing, I used to watch, Sens playoff games and just be riddled with nervousness and completely just can't sit still, got to stand up, move around, all that kind of stuff. None of that happened while I was watching these Carolina Hurricanes games, which is so refreshing. It's like my heart rate didn't even rise for a minute. I'm sure that'll change as the playoffs go along and the games become more and more meaningful, but this was a nice change of pace, I will say that much, watching a playoff team. Lastly, I do want to talk about the New York Rangers because this is something where if you're a Canes fan and you're watching this video, absolutely revel in this win. But realize, too, that this Rangers team isn't going to be this bad into the future. This is a team that arguably shouldn't have been there at any point for this kind of playoff format. If you're looking at the regular playoff format, they would not have made it, of course. But this is a team that has Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, one of the best upcoming goalies in Igor Shesterkin, a very good top six that is just waiting for a defensive core to round it out. And trust me, they've got guys on the way for that. They've got Libor Hayek, they've got Keandre Miller. These players are coming, and the Rangers are going to be one of the best teams in the league inside of the next 3 years. Shesterkin played a hell of a game in Game 3 coming in for relief of Henrik Lundqvist. And you just watch him play, and it seems like he's so lackadaisical. He's so relaxed in the net, kind of just going with the flow. It's incredible to see. He looks like, he reminds me so much of like the 2014 to 2016 era Carey Price. He makes every save just look easy. He doesn't react like a crazy amount. Like we watch Peter Mrazek react to a shot and how crazy his movements are, and he's always kind of like a hyper bunny, like the Energizer bunny in the net. Igor's not like that at all. So this is a fun series to look back on in the future. It's exciting as a fan to revel in the fact that we won this one. We won it in the sweep when nobody really called for us to do so. Even myself, I called for it Carolina in 5. I didn't think the Rangers would win, but I thought Carolina would actually have a tougher time adjusting to the Rangers. A win is a win, and we move on to the actual Stanley Cup playoffs. They match up with one of the 4 play-in round-robin teams: Philadelphia, Washington, Boston, and Tampa Bay. So there's a ton to look forward to heading into next week. On top of all this, the Rangers are the first team entered into the Alexis Lafreniere sweepstakes. They have a 12.5% chance of having that number 1 overall pick. Of course, the other 7 teams are going to be eliminated in the coming days, so that's something to look forward to. And boy, oh boy, if the New York Rangers get Alexis Lafreniere, that is just going to speed this whole thing up. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. These hopefully will come out on the same night or the following morning of each game, between a work schedule and all that stuff. It is always tough to keep these kind of things rolling. I'm going to try my best to dedicate a lot of my time to this. As for other things on the channel here, the NHL 2004 series, I've got a couple episodes to still edit and upload, but they'll come out probably like 1 a week going forward until the playoffs are done. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Please like the video if you did. Click that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell there. That'll give you the video as soon as it uploads to YouTube with any device you've got connected with YouTube. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Let's go Canes.